So you heard before you started your journey into tech that this is where the money is, right? And as a sharp guy that you are, you decided to get your hands on the money. So you did everything, network, pitched, and now you're gainfully employed in tech and you're earning good money, probably in dollars. Nice. I'm happy for you. It's time for a lifestyle change. And to be honest, I agree with you. So you switch up, you change your car, you probably change your apartment, brush up your wardrobe, stuff like that. Cool. But have you stopped to think about the financial decisions you're making? Have you thought about the fact that this might not be the best decisions for, your financial future? Well, on this episode of Beyond the Codes, we're sitting with Jude Dike, the co-founder of GetEquity, an investment platform that came into the market with the mantra of challenging the status quo of startup financing and venture capital in Africa. We'll be discussing everything from startup financing to personal finance for techies.
Hi, my name is Jefta Uche, and I'm a seasoned technology leader with years of experience crafting digital products and leading technology teams. I'm super excited to welcome you to this episode of Beyond the Codes with Jeff, where I have conversations with other amazing technology leaders. Please like, subscribe, and share this content with others so that they can learn as well. It definitely will be worth their time.
Welcome, Jude.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Beyond the Codes with Jeff. This is our first time having you. What can we serve you, sir?
Water's fine. Water's fine.
Nice. So, how has your day been so far?
Interesting, actually. So I just finished an International Women's Day webinar. I'm going to see a couple of companies pitch for Techstars after this, and then I still have another Twitter space. So it's like today I'm doing non-CEO things, but more ecosystem, VC type things, which is very interesting so far.
Do you enjoy doing things like this?
Yeah, I've been telling my friend recently that I'm seeing myself move away from being a tech bro now to being on the other side of the table and being an investor. So far, it's been interesting.
Does that involve composing long Twitter threads?
It's always going to. Sometimes it involves. I'm still learning that part to just shut up and laugh and overlook.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'll get to that point. I tell people it's youthful exuberance right now.
Yeah.
Where they make me compose threads.
I feel you. But I don't. Do I see you compose threads a lot? I think I see you reply to things a lot. You engage people. You don't just see it and leave it. You go and engage the person. Why? And it's really interesting because I think I find your engagements quite like there's always a perspective that maybe the person is not seeing the view from.
Yeah. So sometimes it's just who is this noisemaker again? But it's what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. I feel you. So tell us more about your background.
So I like to say I'm one of those people that was groomed for tech, right? I had the entry shebang. My first PC when I was 5. Shout out to my mother. And then I had my first PC when I was 5. Did the whole Mavis Beacon teachers typing thing. And then my parents, I don't know if this is fortunately or unfortunately for me, my parents never really believed in the summer traveling kind of thing. So summer was always spent doing summer lessons somewhere.
Yeah.
And my father had this rule that for your JS3 long holidays, you go to like a computer school somewhere. I had a computer in my house. I don't know what I needed a computer training institute for. But then I went to one and it was digital certification in design. So it was in computer design. This was way back in 2007.
Okay.
So you're building out, we learned how to build out the whole NTA logo, do like close up using Corel Draw.
Interesting.
All those things. And I think that was my first entry point into, oh, wow, I can create stuff.
Okay.
And then fast forward into done with secondary school where I'm going, I'm trying to get into uni. And I only ever had one school. It was Unilag. And I never really thought of any other school.
Yeah.
And now I had a clash with my father, which was he wanted me to do the more electrical engineering. You know, all the illustrious sons were electrical engineers with a twist of IT. They were doing the CCNAs and all of that kind of stuff. And then here I am going, I want to do computer science and write programming. I mean, then I didn't even know it was programming. I just wanted to be a hacker.
Yeah.
Obviously, I never told my parents that. But according to my father, it's like, you want to go and do what they're doing in Computer Village. Literally. But thankfully, I won the fight. They had to bring a couple of people in that they respected. So yeah, it was a long-term thing. My father at once threatened not to pay my school fees. And then I'm like, it's 10,000 naira. Like, you cannot be threatening that kind of thing. So anyways, fast forward, I got into Unilag, computer science. And our first semester, they literally just threw us into programming.
Wow.
First semester in computer, CSE 101, Introduction to Computer was, I think that was C++, if I'm not mistaken. But then in another course, we were doing Visual Basic. And I think the Visual Basic was the first course I did. Or was the first class I did where we're given an assignment to create a calculator, an almighty formula calculator. For some reason, I think that entire thing shaped my entry point into tech. At first, I mean, I'd always been this guy who likes computers, knows how to use computers. Yeah. But for the first time I was writing a program, I built something from scratch that took a life of its own. And it kind of made me feel like God. Mm-hmm. I mean, shout out to the big man. Mm-hmm. It kind of made me feel like God. And since that time, it's been everything. I've always been an inquisitive person, sometimes too inquisitive. But since that time, it's gotten me to always keep learning new things. From there, I got into, I think about like my 300 level. I stopped coding just for fun because I actually found out that people were paying money for this shit that I was doing for fun. And I mean, the first time we agreed on 50K to build like 5 different platforms. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think I only got like 10K out of it, but still, I enjoyed it. Yeah. And it wasn't really about the money at that time. I didn't even know people were making money out of tech. So I think it was a follow-on year where, so after that 5 projects, now I had a portfolio, I could command a bit more money. So then if I needed to do anything now, I was putting my price at 50K for one project. Okay. I was feeling like a big boy. I mean, this was, 400, 300 level. Yeah. And I'm like, back then, allowance for people in school was like 20K. Whoa. But here I am, one project would take maybe 1 week and I could make 50K in 1 week. So I feel like a big boy. Fast forward into 400 level. Actually, no, that was my 400 level. So fast forward into 500. My price has increased now to 70K. So I'm like, I'm chilling, right? In my mind, I'm chilling. Oh my gosh. And then one of my classmates reaches out to me and asks me if, how much it will cost to work on a platform, right? This was, the early, so it's 2014. There wasn't back end or front end. It was literally the full platform. So, I just blurted out, my price is 70K, feeling like a big boy. And then the guy goes, oh, okay, fine. So we go to meet the actual person who owns the project, and then he tells me not to say anything, that he would do the talking. And then when, we've done the introduction, everything, the guy now asks, so how much are we going to do? My friend just blurts out 120K each. I'm there with the shock in my eye, like, what is... And the guy agrees. He's like, yeah, go. So you guys will sign this, sign here. We signed it. A week later, I can still remember exactly what I was doing when I got the credit alert for. So we'd agreed on an installment of 100K and then 20K when the project is done. So like literally 100K bank alert comes in. I am a big boy.
Definitely.
I am a big boy.
Definitely.
I mean, a semester is give or take 4 months. 20K a semester is 80K. I have a full semester's amount in my bank account. I'm chilling. Which is even weird because like 2 months later, the same guy, now the owner of the company, right, reaches out to me for another thing and we agree on 250K. So I'm like,
wow.
You know what?
Take money.
That is it.
Take money.
So as at this time, take money.
Yeah.
And as at this time, right, what had even happened is the person that we now did the 250K gig for kind of snatched me because it was about 2 months to my graduation. So I did the project for 2 months.
Yeah.
In fact, did the project for 2 months. The guy liked me. And then apparently the first person or the person who like I was doing projects for was already planning that, once you graduate, and I'll put you on a salary. This is where you're going to come and work in. Little did he know that the person that we're building this 250K gig had other things in mind. He's like, look, I like you, I like what you do. Come and work for me. Now, the deal breaker in this instance is that the other person, that's the big man now, let me call him big man, has an apartment with the gig.
Ooh.
So here I am, I'm graduating, I'm moving to an apartment in Lekki.
Damn.
My life was soft that period.
Damn.
So as at this time, there's not much startups operating.
Yeah.
This is still 2015. I mean, Paystack hasn't become Paystack. They haven't gone to YC.
Yeah.
But, things started growing. Fast forward 2016, I leave that gig because the apartment has expired. I'm now a big boy. I'm picky and choosy. The apartment had expired. I needed to come from home to the office.
Yeah.
I'd done that for 3 weeks, fell ill. I was like, nah, this is not the will of God for me. So fortunately, as at that time when I was ill, another friend had reached out to me and said, hey, so there's this company that is looking to hire. Do you want to interview? And I came there. The interview was a couple of minutes. They asked how much you want to earn. I just blotted out 250. So after I had finished, all those 252 months gigs, the first stable job I had gotten was 150 monthly. So that was my first job out of uni.
Okay.
And well, after tax, everything was 120. So this one, I just blot out 250 nets. We shall beat it down to 200K. I'm like, shit, yes, big boy. Turns out this other place too comes with a house, but not just a house, comes with a cook as well. So I'm like, I'm in the life, right? I'm in the sweet life. And I worked at that place. While working at that place, I was still getting gigs from that first guy that wasn't able to hire me. I was still getting gigs from him. My standard pricing now was 200K per gig.
Mad.
So life was good.
Interesting.
Everything was fine. Pretty much sweet, all of that. See, I've even forgotten the question you asked me. But literally, it kept adding up. I left that place. I think I worked there for about a year and about 18 months. And in that 18 months, so fast forward into the beginning of 2018, someone reaches out to me from... So I quit I'm at this new place that has this new house.
Yeah.
But then the previous place that I worked in with the previous house, someone from there had reached out to me and said, he has a couple of friends. They're Canadian Nigerians. They want to start a business and they need an engineer. And because I heard Canadian engineers, I'm like, look, this is my chance. We've been talking about earning in USD, so fuck it. We're about to do this.
Yeah.
So we have a conversation, blah, blah, blah. We talk about it. They ask how much. I go $30 per hour. I'm like, this $30. I mean, I checked all the people that, back then you didn't have guys you could compare with. I mean, back then earning in USD was unknown of. There were only, I think you count the people who were earning USD off the palms of your fingers, and they were gods to us. So I go $30 an hour and they agree. I mean, obviously it would convert into Naira and they'll pay me Naira equivalent. That's the first time I saw $1 million. So they give me a project, $30 an hour. How long would that take? I think it was supposed to take a little over a month, maybe a month or 2 months, or something like that.
Wow.
But bam, I get my first installment, $1 million Naira.
Oh.
Clean. I'm like, yes, we're in it. I mean, this is the life.
Yeah.
So from there, from there, I'm working there. I finally leave the job that came with the house. Now I have to look for an apartment. I got an apartment. Yeah. Started working in a bank. That part was very interesting. Some friends of mine were building out the digital arm of a traditional bank, and they were building a digital banking product for them. And the bank was also had internal projects that they wanted to be able to do. Yeah. So, I mean, this was Sterling Bank anyways. They had internal projects they wanted to do. So my friend was like, look, they're focusing on this. He wanted to hire me and a couple of other people to focus on the others. Yeah. So I kind of was like the team lead for the outsource. So he had built a team internally in the bank. Yeah. And that team now had, let me call them, they had their internal part. So I kind of led the outsourcing arm for the other products that the bank themselves wanted to build. So I was doing this on a freelance. So here I am earning freelance from the Canadian guys and then freelance from the bank. I mean, all adding together, it was a bit over 500. So I'm cool. I'm a big boy. Yeah. Me and my friends do a trip to Rwanda where we're living the life. I mean, one of those projects from the bank ended up being Altmall. That finally launched in, I think, 2021. But then we had built that since 2019. A second one, that was an exchange actually that never saw the light of day, unfortunately. Yeah. But it's still there. From what I hear, it's still being used internally. So with those things, after the bank, I had a drought. Because now the bank's projects have finished.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing else.
What next?
I'm looking for US gigs.
Yeah.
I finally get one that now even made me drop the Canadian one. So this is the first time I'm actually seeing cold hard, US currency, cold hard dollars. Yeah. As an earning. So this is 2019. 2019, I think about August or September, I get a gig. And the gig is beautiful. It's $4,000. My head is spinning. I'm like, yes, I've made it. Mama, I've made it. Yeah. Unfortunately, that also came with my very first experience of imposter syndrome. Because now this is me who was I wasn't earning up to $1 million before. Mm-hmm. Now I'm earning $4,000. I think at that time, $4,000 was about 1.4, 1.5. So I'm like, yo. And for the first time, I'm speaking with spree, so typical white people. Yeah. I'm the first black person.
Interesting. On
the team. At that same time, because I'd applied to 2 companies, so at that same time, I'm also working for a crypto company. But then the crypto company wasn't necessarily paying much. In fact, it was paying like maybe $400. Okay. Right? But I was working there because I liked what it was that they were doing. Yeah. Which would later turn out to be great for me. So I start with long story short, the spree company fires me because, I was not contributing. And the crazy thing is, during the interview, all of that, I was literally told I was the best they had. And the reason why is that a lot of the things that they were planning to scale into, I'd done them before. So the Dockerization, and this was core engineering, right? Dockerization, how they structured the DB, some of the tools that they were thinking of using. Yeah. I had already used those tools. Okay. But now we're having architecture discussions and I'm not even hearing what somebody's saying. So I don't even know how I'm contributing, where to interject and where to contribute. And then someone goes, okay, so Jude, what do you think? I'm like, huh? So it was horrible. Now that I think back at it, it was really horrible. So I got fired, right? And I underwent a drought because I saw my performance dwindling. I'd quit the crypto company so that I'd focus more on the one that's actually paying me money,
exactly.
right? And in Nigeria was also happening in the sense that internet was horrible. Even though I had 3 types of internet, it was still horrible. But anyways, long story short, I got fired and I was trying to get more gigs. September of 2019, unfortunately, nobody's hiring. And at that time, I wasn't looking at Nigerian companies. So I even decided, you know what, let me even try out Nigerian companies.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because I kept interviewing, but I wasn't getting any final decisions. It was always, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you. I got frustrated. And that's even when I took to Twitter mostly to talk about, I started doing this thing where, my interview questions, I go ask them on Twitter. And it turned out, it was helping a lot of people. Even people, like we were having arguments over what was the best way to solve this, blah, blah, blah. The good thing is 2020 opens up and if I can't remember correctly, okay, I think my girlfriend at the time has a friend who's looking for an engineer. They're starting a program and they're looking for an engineer that will be the face of it. It's an outsourcing company, right? And so, I say it's a perfect fit for me. So I interview, I get it. They're even happy. They're like, yes, this is exactly what we're looking for. They outsourced me to the company. I think then I was getting paid I think we're taking Naira 700K. So, it wasn't like what I was getting before, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And then another crypto company reaches out to me because I've always dabbled in crypto since about 2018. I've always been a crypto engineer. So the Canadian guys I was working for, I was building crypto infrastructure for them. So literally, now I'm getting back into the zone. 2020, I'm now earning back the equivalent of what I was earning from those UK guys.
Yeah.
Even though I'm getting paid only in Naira, which is fine for me. All well and good. I did that to the middle of the year, and then the outsourcing company goes, or the company I was being outsourced to goes, they can't afford us anymore. So the project has to end. Now, the outsourcing company actually tried to hire me internally, but I didn't like the requirements. So now I'm back to 700K. Then my life has always been weird. It has always been just people just handpicking things and giving it to me. The first crypto company I talked about that I worked with, that I had to leave because of the US gig. Now, my engineering manager at that time, turns out he had started out his own business. Started out his own company, and he needed an engineer to work with, and he had liked me. So he reached out and he hired me on the spot. So now I'm back to earning good money.
Yeah.
All of this goes into 2020, into 2021. 2021 is soft, is good. 2022 happens and it gets even crazier and even better because I now got a gig that paid way more than whatever expectations. I got a gig in, basically California.
Okay.
In a crypto company. So I quit all my other gigs. Right now, at this point, in my drought in 2019, I started working on a side project. And this was from a crypto version. I was saying, what if companies could do ICOs where people could invest in them?
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So, obviously it was play, right? I had a friend of mine who was working with me on it as well. So now by 2021, that play was starting to look like, I could put more effort into it. And we started doing that too.
Yeah.
This is 2021 where startups, in fact, from 2019, the startup ecosystem in Nigeria had blossomed. 2020, it's blew up. So 2021, yes, now we're all in startups.
Yeah.
So everybody's an engineer on one side doing a startup thing on the side. There's everybody's side project now is now becoming a startup. So I was one of those. By 2022, I get into this, by 2021 ending, I get this nice gig. Actually, I'm the one missing the time. It's 2021 that I get that gig. And it was amazing. I got the gig in the beginning of 2021. It paid me a shit ton of money. It was over 100K a year.
Oh, that's good.
So it was a shit ton of money. It was really good. So now unfortunately for me, that play gig has now gotten to the point where I'm talking with VCs. I'm talking with potential investors.
Interesting.
And so I have to make this decision. What am I going to do? Do I want to remain as a tech pro? Do I want to pursue this? And that's my third time being a founder. So even the Canadian guys, I'd worked with them to the point where they had made me a co-founder.
Oh.
And then prior to that in uni, my final year, I had started a startup that almost got venture backed because they ghosted us. I don't know why. After we had agreed on terms. But yeah, so this was like, the cosmos is telling me I need to do this.
Okay.
So I leave tech bro money.
That's crazy.
With my savings, beginning of 2020, around that 2021, I think also mid of 2021, we got our first 100K investment from Greenhouse. So I'm like, yes, now I have, like VCs I've invested in. So somebody has actually given me $100,000 for something that came out of my head. Now I have to do this.
Yeah.
So I quit my jobs, everything, and start becoming a founder. And that's how GetEquity was born.
That's so interesting.
Crazy. And I mean, it's what it is till now. 2 years, almost 2 years in the making. I think we're going to be 2 years in July.
Wow. Well, at what point, like in all of this journey, did you ever think maybe I'd end up a founder one day?
So I'd always, even from, I like to say that I'd always dreamt I was going to be a business owner. From when I was a kid.
Okay.
But the actual time it cemented was when I was 16. Direct personal issues in the sense of, I remember growing up, both my parents are career individuals, right?
Okay.
I'd always seen their life. I'd always told myself I was never going to be that long-term career individual. I was always going to be a business owner. I mean, down to the point, I think sometime when I was 18, a girl I was toasting at the time, here's an 18-year-old stupid kid toasting a babe and telling the babe that at one of my delusional times when they are rubbing my head, I was like, yes, by the time I am 40, I want to have a business that's making $10 million in annual revenue. I can't even remember how in the hell. So this is where I would attribute to novels that I used to read. So I'd read a lot of novels that, had to do with business owners.
Yeah.
So I'd known the meaning of revenue, all of that kind of stuff. So here's me bragging to somebody rubbing my head that, yes, and by the time I'm 40, I'm going to have a business that's doing $10 million in annual revenue and I'll retire.
Wow.
So my plan, the plan of an 18-year-old me is to retire at 40.
At 40?
I don't know, maybe it might work out, maybe it might not. But the ramblings of a 14-year-old congee-starved kid that was trying, I don't know if he was trying to get the babe to like him that much or whatever, but I tell people that that's literally the life I'm living right now.
Interesting.
All of this had been planned ahead by an 18-year-old's brain.
That's very interesting, man. I mean, I think I'm definitely one of the people that will say I identify very much as an accidental entrepreneur. Because I mean, I think I kind of have the same upbringing, to a large extent. My parents were career people, but they had like businesses on the side, and we were well off, to a very large extent. But then I saw that they had friends who were like full-time entrepreneurs or business people. I mean, not all of them were doing great at the time. And so it created this image of entrepreneurship for me that looked like stuff ahead. Like, man, I'm not going to do this, right? I'm just going to go work for someone, and then it's going to be about their money. The risk will be on their money. And when she goes, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, things went bad, and then I'm going to move somewhere. So not have the risk on myself. But yeah, like here we are.
For me, the risk was opposite because so when I turned 14, my father was let go. Ooh. And my father was let go not for any particular reason, just because, I mean, they were the ones running the company. It was a federal government-owned company. And so they had sold it to a private entity.
I see.
And I mean, they came with their own people, all of that. So it changed the entire psyche for me. It's like, look, you've given 31 years of your life. Yes. My dad had worked straight up with the federal government for about 31 years, got into the very top, right? I'm like, 31 years of your life, and that's it. Somebody, a private business just comes and says, well, we're sorry.
Damn.
So for me, obviously, it changed a couple of things in finances. I mean, I went from being not thinking about money to, okay, I mean, now you can still afford it, but you need to think about it first.
Yeah.
And so that just hit me with, I never want to be in that situation where I'm going to be at anybody's mercy in that particular aspect ever again.
That makes a lot of sense.
So that was my own risk into why I was always going to end up as an entrepreneur.
That makes sense.
I did not know that entrepreneurs, they suffer. I did not know.
I mean, and I think that's a very key component of what we're discussing today. So we'll talk about founders, and because I had one of my team members put out a poll on Twitter, and asking about some of the things people now understand about tech money, and someone just wrote like founders are broke, but we're going to come back to that, right? But let's talk about how you handled or some of the decisions you made during those crests and troughs, the times when you had you were earning good, and the times that things were, are those things that every engineer, for example, every tech person should expect to have? And if you were to go back, how would you plan to make better decisions around those times?
Okay, so are those things that people have? Yes. I like to think that I have some of the highest flyers in Nigerian tech as friends, as close friends. And every single one of them has had that experience sometime in their life. You've had an experience where you were making really good money. You've had an experience where you were poor. But I'd also say that my upbringing kind of had me desensitized to money. So I was always, again, my upbringing in the sense of we had money. Now we started thinking of things that you would have to buy, all of that kind of stuff. So, and getting back to the point where I started to have money again, I was very desensitized to money. Money literally became a means to an end. And then it was also knowing that I had people I could fall back on. So yes, I had periods when I was piss broke, but then I was always not so far away from someone who I knew that I trusted enough and trusted me enough to give me a loan that I would pay back in the future. Plus, I've always just had this thing in mind that the money is just going to come. The money is just in my front. It just never entered my pocket yet. So that's been my mindset.
Yeah.
Obviously, I attribute that mindset to a large part of my upbringing.
Yeah.
And the fact that I know that I've done pretty well for myself in my career. If I were to stop being a founder, I will still be very much employable.
Yeah.
So it's knowing that thing of bad as bad, right? It's knowing that bad as bad, I'll still be good, allows me to play a little bit more with risk. And again, I don't have black taxes to pay, or let me say my own black tax is a different type.
Yeah.
Right? Some people black tax is about feeding their families. Mine black taxes, am I paying for my baby sister's tuition to the UK?
Yeah.
So it's different. In that kind of instance, even my baby sister is someone who had brought into tech, earns enough in tech to be able to live well off on her own. I mean, my mother is still a civil servant. My mother works for the federal government. My baby sister earns more than my mother.
Interesting.
So I'll put it that I don't have black tax to pay.
Okay.
So for me, I'm able to take out more risk. I'm single. I don't have black tax. It means that, yes, you can be a bit risky with how it is. Things like this will change if I'm married, right? Or have a family.
That makes sense.
You have to think of those. So it's also what drives me in the sense of, I can't remember, there's someone in my life had told me this is the best time for you to play, to make as much risk as you want to. If it works, fine. You're good to go.
Yeah.
It pays off in the long run. If it doesn't, at least you know that there's something to lean back on. Your worst case scenario is that, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
I mean, give or take, if my worst case scenario of, let's say, GetEquity not working out is the fact that I still have 2 years of being a founder, of being a high-flying founder, which still adds to my career. So the risk is actually very minimal.
So your biggest leverage or your biggest insurance against, like, any of these risks, you would say is the hard
is
skills.
lack of responsibilities.
Lack of responsibility. Oh, okay.
Yes, lack of responsibilities.
That makes sense.
Is the biggest, right? There's also the fact that I have those skills. I'm still honing those skills.
Yeah. Okay. So the lack of responsibility is not something people.
I rank that one highest because it doesn't matter if you have hard skills or whatever. If you can't chop, you can't chop.
True.
Right? And let's say you had a family with a kid, right? It's a very different. A week or every single passing day that you're not able to fend for them is very detrimental.
True.
Now, I mean, for myself, how much will I spend on myself? Maybe not much. Maybe I've gotten to a certain level of comfort, but at least I can afford to let go of comfort because for only myself, I can afford to lean on other people. But if you have a family, then it's your burn rate, let me call it that, is a bigger margin.
So if I were to be getting into tech today, right? If I was, just this person who got so excited about tech, just hearing about the money and all, and I was trying to get into tech today. Let's say I do not have, the flexibility that you do in terms of responsibilities, right? What would you, advise me to target as my highest leverage?
So first is your age. I mean, if you're young, look, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it. The worst case scenario is it didn't work. You tried another thing. And I think in my career, I've been able to see people's entire family, like class, change just because they got into tech, right? And they were able to grow in tech. So I would say, look, the upside is amazing. The downside is that it didn't work. You try another thing. Now, if you're older, there's a couple more things to leverage. What do you have experience in? So I know when some people ask me that they want to get into tech, many times the first thing that they think of is code.
Code, yeah.
But then now I tell people that there's other things outside of code. And in fact, it's why some people say, I want to get into tech, but I'm not sure my head can carry code. I'm like, there's many other things to tech. The tech is in itself is an industry that is adjacent to every other industry. We're in a digital age, so every other industry now uses tech.
Exactly.
Now, if you're much older, it means you have experience doing something. You must have had experience doing something. Now, look at the tech adjacent of what you have been doing. It's not, so you don't do a complete 180 and then just turn from, let's say you were a doctor, you want to do a complete 180 and now start writing code.
That makes sense.
You can start to be a domain expert in a health tech company.
Exactly.
Now, you're fusing what you currently know. And now you're moving it into getting into the tech scene. And the beauty of this thing is that those healthcare companies probably pay even more than what you've earned as a doctor.
Yeah.
Because now I've met people who were able to as much as 5-10x their salaries just from moving from a traditional work that they were doing directly into some of the startups coming up.
Yeah.
So all these things again depend on what's your age, your experience, all of that kind of stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I talk about this a lot when I discuss with people because I think maybe the purest form of tech would be, when we apply it to things like ChatGPT and the rest, right? But almost every other thing is an application in domain, right? And so if you have a background in banking, it's a very relevant experience to people who are building fintech companies.
Exactly.
Right. So your switch to tech doesn't mean you go pick up a laptop and start coding.
Exactly.
Right. It could be to play right at your strengths. And I think this is something that people miss a lot and it's not talked about enough.
Yes. So it's why when I see threads and then sometimes I'm like, and I also see what they call it, training institutes.
Yeah.
I've been on a space once where someone was asking why the companies not hire directly from training institutes. And I was saying, look, the honest truth is it's almost not going to work unless, like for me, I'm embedded in the Nigerian tech ecosystem. There's no person you want to give me on the early, should I say, on the entry level that I wouldn't have gotten myself.
True.
And if I'd gotten myself, like say, if I ask any of the training institutes now, maybe they send me 50 CVs or 20. Let's even say, okay, they sieved it, gave me 20.
Yeah.
I have to sift through 20. Now, there's a chance that none of those 20s meet my standard.
High chance.
Very high chance. But if I'm asking within my network, now, I have an embedded network of people who already know what I am looking for.
Yeah.
If I ask within my network and I'm sent 3 people, it's granted that at the very least, 60, 70% of those people that are sent to me already meet my standard.
Yeah.
So now it's that I'm spoiled for choice. So
that makes sense.
If you're doing a training institute, of which, many training institutes right now are focused on people who want to get into tech, so entry level, they're not focused on people who want to become adjacent into tech.
Exactly.
There's no one there, which is where, and I tell people that, look, a lot of startups, unfortunately, startups are young and it's a move fast, break things.
Yeah.
Nobody has time to say you want to train someone. So for people to learn as they go, not really. We're looking for people who would bring in experience and keep it running.
That's it.
So if you're looking for all of this, it's traditional businesses that have gotten to that level, that have like training institutes and all this sort of thing. So if you yourself say you want to be a training institute, it's all well and good. You have to be able to partner with existing. If you're providing me a service and you're providing that and you're creating that service in a black box without me being engaged in it. How do you know? How do you get that feedback mechanism?
True.
And it's the problem I've seen with all of them.
Yeah.
It's the fact that there's no feedback mechanism. You're creating, let's say, a training for DevOps. Yeah, maybe there's a standard way of doing DevOps, but there's the way you do DevOps in class, and then there's the way you do your DevOps in the real world.
Actually, there's a way you do DevOps in any other company, and there's a way you do DevOps in fintech.
Do you understand? So
things.
All those nuances, those are what people are looking for. I'm not hiring an entry. Those are what people are looking for. All those nuances. So when people say, "Oh, companies are not hiring," and then founders are saying we're looking for talent, everybody's confused. Right? Everybody's saying, you're looking for talent, but these are talent here, but that you're not hiring.
Yeah.
So the word is we're looking for the right talent. And unfortunately, when you're building in a black box away from those who are actually looking for the talent, you're not able to get the idea of what exactly are they looking for.
Yeah.
You're building what you think they are looking for. And then you drop into the market and you're like, no, this is not what I want.
This makes a lot of sense.
It's like I go into a pharmacy and I'm asking for Panadol, but everybody's trying to give me paracetamol. I'm like, no, but this is specifically what I want.
That makes sense. I mean, I think that, when you talk about the adjacencies, it's something people really don't like. I mean, I don't think there is any training institution right now. I don't think there's a training institution right now that is trying to get people who have a background in banking, for example, into fintech, right? Like who's like merging that? Because I've seen people who are in business and then they're asking questions like, I really want to get into fintech. Like they want to get, but they don't know what they are missing, right? But they're in business.
There are a lot of them.
Yeah.
And it's why I see a lot of, look, I tell founders, most times, anybody in fintech, I go, look, the best way to get talent is to go and T4 from a bank.
From a bank, yeah, I agree with that.
So now a lot of founders have started learning, actually. You work in fintech, you want a risk person. Your risk person is stuck inside a bank somewhere. Your risk person is stuck inside a bank somewhere earning 350.
That's a high salary for
but you in a fintech, you are able to pay up to 700, which is twice their salary.
Yeah.
They have the experience that you need because they've done what you're trying to do on a much larger scale.
True.
So go to the bank and go and look for them.
Very true.
Now, this is where sourcing agencies need to come in. Yeah. Sourcing agencies need to come in for those particular niches. But I guess until we see them, we all wait.
Okay, so I mean, just going back to to the topic of our conversation. I mean, this is probably an entirely different podcast conversation, because I think it's very important. Like, no, seriously, I think it's so. Going off tangent once again, I have been with someone who's an event manager, and she's telling me, I want to get into tech. I'm like, how many people do you manage, right? I work with a team of 11 people. Like, you'd be a great project manager.
My current marketing manager started out as an event planner.
Exactly.
And so what I did was to get her training on project management.
Project management.
And then with the events and everything, that has typically historically been a part of marketing.
Yeah.
And now get her on project management and on product marketing, and she was able to get that switch
exactly
and that tangent. And now so whatever events that when my company requires planning of an event, she already has experience with that.
Yeah.
If it's on the product marketing aspect, now she's getting experience in that.
That makes sense.
And I have two sides of a coin.
That makes a lot of sense.
And all I needed to do was invest in Udemy videos.
True. Okay, so let's talk about people who so there is this thing that happens, especially for engineers, where you go from earning 250K to 1.5 million. Happens for a lot of people, right? I have a lot of personal stories around this. But what happens also alongside that is the fact that your financial intelligence doesn't just suddenly get upgraded. Like, you could burn that money for 6 months, like, without realizing, hey, like, it seems like a lot of money, it just all at the same time.
Seems like a lot of money until you get to that. So I think this is where a class thing is.
Yeah.
So if all you've done was 250K, right?
Yeah.
1 million looks like a lot of money until you start earning 1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out your standards have increased. 1 million is now kind of like
250K again. True. So how do you...
It only ever takes a couple of months.
How do you build this financial intelligence along the way that, that makes you make the best of anywhere you are, right? So that, you can also prepare for the down times, probably when you don't have money and things like that.
So, I personally would say I read a lot. Secondly, my biggest influence is Twitter, actually. So I know people tend to talk about the vices of Twitter, but Twitter has been the biggest learning experience for me ever.
Wow.
My switch into venture capital was very public. It happened on Twitter. I was following the right people, etc. So I think for me, it's what's your network?
Yeah.
And your network in this instance is who's your peers. If your peers were all people who also were earning 250, have never seen that million before, you need to be able to look at people who have passed through that process and were successful. In many instances, if you reach out to them, if you reach out to 5, 3 will answer you. And if you reach out well, because another thing we need to talk about that we don't have as a culture is an approach culture.
Yeah.
We're very horrible at it. In this part of the world, we're very horrible at approach culture. I like to tell people that when you're approaching someone, you need to state who you are, what you do, what you want from them.
Straight up.
Let the person look at it at a glance.
And decide.
If they want to help you, they will decide in seconds if they want to continue that conversation with you or not.
True.
But if you're doing, hi, boss, how are you? And then you're waiting for the person to reply hi back before you. I'm sorry, many people are too busy for that.
That makes sense.
So reach out to people. They will tell you how they did things. Now, for me, it was, I'd always looked at certain people who were investing in startups. I'd always loved the idea.
Okay.
And because I was already embedded in the startup ecosystem. So I was seeing a couple of deals fly around, but I just never had the money at that time. And so when things changed for me and I started earning quite a bit, for me, it was a no-brainer. I became an angel investor. So I think in my portfolio, I think it was as of December last year, I did a rundown of my portfolio, and I think I've invested right now in over 10 companies. One of my companies, I mean, again, it's a risk, right? It's just like doing anything. So I've lost money in one of my companies, but then again, one of my companies has returned my investment in that company, which was about $5,000, has returned enough money to cover all I invested in all the others. And there's still a little bit of change.
That makes a lot of sense.
So for me, this is something that I know I'm going to recycle and keep doing over time. Different people have their own different cases. I mean, Jay-Z talks about buying art.
Yeah.
I have a friend right now that buys art. I keep saying, guy, what is wrong with you? But then later it hits me. It's actually an investment.
Yeah.
And art has historically done better than even the stock market over the past 20 years. Art has gotten more gains than even the stock market. So in some cases that people see, oh, these are things that wealthy people do.
Yeah.
Actually, go study that is it. If you run into money, go study what wealthy people do. Those frivolous things that you think are frivolous, go and study why they do those frivolous things. So many people will look at Jay-Z buying art and go, what? You're buying something that you're just going to hang on your wall and look at it, and that's the end. But now it's buying it for investment purposes.
Yeah.
People who buy jewelry. I mean, I know people who buy gold. I'm wearing gold. I mean, mine is for decoration, obviously. But there's people who invest in jewelry, in gold. Yeah. And because the price of gold goes up.
Yeah.
Right? There's people who put their monies in stock markets because it goes up. There are people who do mutual funds because it goes up. So things like that. Look at why rich people do certain things. In fact, you'd be trying to compare yourself with a wealthy person. Meanwhile, you're using your money to ball. That wealthy person is most likely using dividends of their money to ball. Those two very separate things.
That makes sense.
A wealthy person is more likely using the profits, the returns on his investment to do their partying and all of that. But you're using your capital to party. That's where the difference lies. I'd say, study what wealthy people do and study why they do what they do.
That's so deep. That's really deep. I think that probably summarizes this whole conversation, because I think that that's the biggest thing that happens, right? Like engineers, like, tech guys generally will have, I'm earning block. Now I'm earning block. So what do I do with all of this, right? So I could go buy the latest car. Just buy a good car. Let me just put it that way.
In some instances too. So it's why I tend to, like, as far as you know what drives you. Yeah. All right. You know what it is. Again, still study what wealthy people do. But as far as you know what drives you, I've seen people who have bought what would be referred to as expensive cars. Now, some people will say, a car is not an investment. Not necessarily. I would argue that it depends. Now, you're investing in your car because you want to be addressed a certain type of way. Yeah. You're paying for Equity Club because you want access to certain networks. Those things, they seem like frivolities. Equity Club is about $3,000 yearly. They seem like frivolities. Oh my God, you're paying for Equity Club because you want to feel among. That feel among that you call it is referred to by the wealthy people as networking. Yeah. True. And that networking, once you're in certain spaces, just by proximity,
provides you a lot.
Your wealth is also generating. Yeah. Because you get access. People say opportunities where is where something meets something. I can't remember one of those things.
Where luck.
Luck is where opportunity meets preparation. Yeah. Exactly. So some people would look at it like, oh yeah, hell, he was lucky, he got an oil block. No, it wasn't necessarily luck. It was the fact that the person was in the right network where they were handing out oil blocks and that person was present. And they go, oh, you don't try small. Take one.
True.
all those things. It's and it's why if you look at now the wealthy people and how they also do certain frivolities with their children, going to certain schools, dressing certain type of ways, all of that. Those matter because what they're doing is they're building a network as well.
True.
So these things, again, it still goes into studying
why people do what they do and find out what works for who,
exactly,
and if it would work for you. That makes a lot of sense. It's really informative. And so, how does GetEquity help anyone to make the right decisions around money today?
So, I mean, now we're doing this along multiple ways. So on Startup Founders, we're saying we're helping you get access to capital, right?
Yeah.
We're helping you get access to capital through multiple angles. Helping you get access to capital from raising from your own community. Raising from your community for the later stage companies encourages a bit of stickiness because if, let's say, for example, I have chances to use as many banks as possible. But let's say, for example, Kuda Bank allowed me to invest in Kuda Bank. As far as I've invested in Kuda Bank, I'm going to make sure Kuda Bank grows because I want my money to grow.
True.
So I'm going to make sure every part of my family uses Kuda Bank. And that is how, if you look back, that is how the GTBs and the Access Banks of today grew in the early 2000s. I read AIG's book of Leaving the Tarmac. AIG left GTB with Herbert to start up Access Bank. But even I wish TA wrote his own book. TA was the first MD of GTB. I wish he had written his own book. But what they did was they targeted the youth of that time. And now as those youth grew,
they grew with the bank.
They grew with the bank. They were embedded in the bank.
Yeah.
GTB had a kiddie savings account. Back when all the other banks were looking more at, let's look at the older guys with money.
The guys with the money.
The kiddies, and those kiddies over time had influence on their parents to move their monies to new banks.
That makes sense.
So all these sort of things, it's a compounding effect, it's a ripple effect. So that's what GetEquity is trying to achieve with the stickiness. And it's a win-win thing. For the founders, you are able to own a part of the business you like.
Okay.
For a business, you're able to have what I would call your own army.
Yeah. Evangelists.
People who are evangelists, that's the word actually. People who are ready to live and breathe for you. And in doing that, we also realized that there were traditional businesses that obviously would never give you their data, but they needed what it is that we currently do, the digital aspect of what it is that we do. And that's where we came up with the infrastructure, with the deal room infrastructure, which we have now a couple of partners like ARM. Hopefully I'll be ARM, even now investment summits, right? Invest in Africa summit. Hopefully before the end of the month, I'll be mentioning a couple more names. But these people already, they've been doing this a traditional way and they've become wealthy from doing it.
Yeah.
So the typical asset managers. But now HNIs are beginning to look at venture investing as a new asset class. It's no longer real estate. It's no longer just real estate and stocks.
Yeah.
Now people are looking at, all these startups. Everybody has seen Flutterwave is now worth, Flutterwave, a company that was started 7 years ago, is now worth more than all the banks combined in Nigeria. I mean, rich people will always want to get richer. Yeah. It's just how life works.
Yeah.
And then they're seeing a couple of their friends who, because of proximity to some of these startup founders at that time, have now made even more money from doing that. Maybe those ones, they knew the founder and they were like, okay, just take $10,000. I mean, it's this money that I would have used to go to Maldives anyways, but take that $10,000, you're a good boy. And now that $10,000 that man said you're a good boy for is now worth $1 million. And, the man is Gara. And his friend is looking at it like, Otumba, you didn't introduce me to this thing. You didn't tell me this is how it's working. So these kind of people are now looking at venture as a new asset class.
Yeah.
So where we want to be the driving force of that. Okay. That's what GetEquity is.
Awesome. And that's solid, man. That's solid. So this has been really wonderful. Personally, I've also learned a lot from this conversation. So do you have any last words?
Look, I think my last words has been said, but I'll say this to people who are, if you're trying to get into tech, you have to study those who have come before you.
Yeah.
How did they get in? What were they able to do? Also, own a network, right? Join a network, be part of a network with people. Then, if you're a startup founder, do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you just got into money, do the same exact thing. Find out how people who had gotten into money before were able to maintain and grow their wealth. And history is always repetitive. It's happened to somebody. You're not the first person that anything is happening to. So go take a look at who it happened to before and learn from their own experience. It's that simple.
Wow. Awesome. That's powerful, man. Thank you so much for coming on this show.
Thank you for having me, bro.
It's been really wonderful having you guys. I hope you learned a lot today. I hope you wrote things down. I hope you're learning you learned about how to build wealth, but beyond building wealth, also gaining access to the right places, reaching out to the right people, studying about how things have been done. I mean, Jude has shared a lot today, and I hope that all of this makes you smarter financially. And when you start hitting the bag, my DM, I can share my account.
Feel free to send me tithe out of it.
Yeah, feel free to send your tithe. Thank you very much, and see you on the next episode of Beyond the Codes with Jeff. Bye for now.